Hey, what's happening gamers? It's Luke from GameZone here bringing you yet another impression/review vid. This time on the chopping block we have Trauma Team for the Nintendo Wii. Now, I'm doing my best to look at this game objectively, even though I do have a weak stomach when it comes to blood and a fear of needles. That and hospitals just creep me out in general. So with that in mind, let's grab a surgical mask, a scalpel, and take an in-depth look at Atlus's newest game. The game opens up in a maximum security prison, where a lone prisoner in a mask sits on death row, accused of a horrible crime that even he has no memory of. The US government recruits him to work at a local hospital to work off his crime. While he's at the hospital, we are introduced to 5 other doctors, and the story branches off told from the perspective of each of the characters. Trauma Team is a medical simulation game and the 5th one in the overall series. The game consists of over 50 missions and can be completed in roughly 30 hours. Each mission can take between 5 to 20 minutes. Unlike the past games, the surgeon isn't the only character you play as, but like the previous games, surgery is still fast-paced, tense, exciting, precise controls, challenging, and fun to play. Players are graded by time, and the faster you get things done, the better off your score gets and the more likely your patient will survive. Take too much time and your patient will die though. After saving the person's life, the game awards you with a letter grade based on your performance. Still, what makes Trauma Team stand out from the rest of the series is the fact that you get to do more than just surgery. You can play as a paramedic, a diagnostician, an orthopedic surgeon, a medical examiner, and an endoscopic surgeon, offering so much more gameplay opportunities than ever before. Surgery plays almost identical to the other 2 Wii games, but with a few tweaks here and there. As with before, players select a number of tools with the nunchuck and use the Wiimote to treat hemorrhages, tumors, cuts, and remove foreign objects while keeping the patient's vitals up. New to the series is Endoscopy, which uses the Wiimote to press a tube deeper into a patient's stomach or intestine. You move the tube deeper inside the person by holding A and B while gently thrusting the Wiimote forward. Just be careful not to run into the outer walls as you will damage the patient. Since it's dark inside the human body, the scope uses a built-in flashlight that you use by pointing the Wiimote on screen. Like with surgery, you select different tools with the joystick and must also pay attention to the person's vital signs. Orthopedic gameplay has you using the Wiimote to hammer in pins, cut bones, reposition bones back into place, and cut off tumors sometime from the spine using the Wiimote like a scalpel. Gamers don't need to worry about the patient dying though, so hearts are put in place of the vital signs. Still, if you make too many mistakes during surgery, you will lose. Both the medical examiner and diagnosis doctor use point-and-click game mechanics, and I'm not really going to get into it, other than basically you ask a series of questions until you find out what the patient is suffering from, or how they died. The same as with Dr. Freebird's gameplay, no vitals are needed to worry about, just hearts. First Response's gameplay is the most unique and uses the most Wiimote gestures in the entire game. The goal is to stabilize the person rather than saving their life. Unlike with other gameplay modes, multiple patients are treated at once, and the players can select between the patients with ease. You will notice patients have colors to represent what one is priority over the others. If a patient dies, you don't get a game over though. However, if more than a few die, you will. For the most part, gameplay shifts between just pointing and clicking and dragging to treat wounds, setting bones back into place, cutting off clothes, administering CPR with both the Wiimote and nunchuck, and so much more. Trauma Team controls just like its predecessor, and the motion controls work very well for the most part, except for selecting items during surgery. As you already know, the joystick is used to select different tools to use during surgery and other things in the game. What makes this frustrating, especially if you're a first-time player, is the Wiimote and motion controls work almost flawlessly, but when you're trying to select certain tools, the nunchuck is just too sloppy. And this is the only aspect of the game that makes the gameplay not necessarily bad, but a little annoying. Co-op play isn't bad either, but it's not what I was expecting. Instead of assisting the lead player, the game has you take turns, meaning if the other player messes up during surgery, your grade would be lowered. We think it would have been awesome to hand out the tools to the first player and have an actual assist mode rather than just taking turns. Out of all the new modes in this game, there are only 2 that I didn't like. First, let's talk about getting a diagnosis. Sadly, Dr. Gabriel's missions are just really boring. It just felt like I was doing the same thing over and over again. Talk about repetitive. Plus, it didn't meet that thrilling aspect of the game that I was used to. The only part of Gabriel's missions that I liked was the interaction between him and the computer made for some funny and downright awkward moments. I laughed quite a bit during those, and it made this mode somewhat more bearable. Lastly, I may be alone in this, but I found the murder investigation kind of dull and a bit confusing. It just felt like the near-perfect gameplay seemed to break down during this point, and going from one chapter to the next took forever. Don't get me wrong, the plot of The Medical Examiner was amazing, but the gameplay aspect just isn't at the same level as the rest of the game. Keep in mind, these are just minor complaints because we actually enjoyed this game. The biggest thing going for this game is there is so many unique and fun gameplay modes for you to play. Atlus has done so much to please both the old and new fans alike. They made this game easy to pick up and play for new players, but at the same time offer enough of a challenge for returning veterans too. Being able to play more than just surgery kept the game fresh in my opinion. My favorite new gameplay mechanics had to be playing as the orthopedic surgeon, Dr. Freebird, and playing as the hot-tempered EMT, Maria. Let me tell you something, doing bone surgery was way different than just slicing up patients and removing tumors and diseases. Sometimes you actually need to hammer stuff with the Wiimote, saw off bones, replace them with artificial ones, use a laser to cut out stuff, and this mode allows players to take their time too, which I really like. So Hank's missions were more relaxed than the rest of the game. Not to mention his story and the fact that he is secretly a superhero was pretty rock solid if you ask me. Maria is the foul-mouthed, hot-tempered EMT, but her heart is in the right place. Frankly, Maria's missions are the complete opposite of Hank's and are much more heart-pounding if you ask me. Gamers are literally on the clock, and this mode expects you to do stuff very quickly. An aspect my wife didn't enjoy, but I actually did. In this mode, you have to treat a number of patients and switch between them on the fly. At first, I thought this was going to be similar to the surgery mode, but it's nothing like it. You treat burn wounds, remove objects from the victim, put holes in their neck using a ballpoint pen, and so many other impressive uses of the Wiimote. Gameplay-wise, I'm still amazed how fine-tuned and intuitive these modes are. The visual style was excellent in this game, and the animations and anime style continue the Trauma series tradition. This story is just so well written in this game and feels better than most American medical drama shows. Playing this game made me wish there would be a 2-season anime show based on this cast of characters and the disease they're trying to fight. But I suppose that's just wishful thinking. I do have to say that the voice actors did a compelling and downright amazing job, and they really added so much more to this game. Personally, I don't agree with what other reviewers say about this game's music being decent. I really like the music, and it reflects the atmosphere of the game perfectly. An example of this, while you're chaining combos, the music starts to get better and better as you do, but when you mess up, then the music goes back to its original state. And this provides for some very tense and exciting situations. Since I've never been good at fast surgeries, I liked being able to shoot the patient full of medicine to give me more time. Even though it lowers the overall grade of the game, it was still pretty nice, but we know it's not like this in real life. Trauma Team has taken all the stuff fans have liked throughout the series and somehow improved upon every single factor of them, while at the same time adding new elements to keep the series fresh. If it's not cool being able to play as 6 other characters, well, how about when playing as these characters, they all interact and intertwine with each other? We thought that was really clever, and Atlus has made it so if you don't play as all the characters, you're not going to get to experience what this game fully has to offer. It's really hard for me to recommend this game because of its very addictive properties. It's like experiencing an amazing anime that you just can't stop watching unless you do some serious binge to find out how it ends. I will say this though, out of all the Trauma games I've played over the years, this is by far the most fun and the best game in the series in my humble opinion. Forensics and diagnostics are a bit different than the rest of the game, but they do add a new spin to the franchise and don't really drag it down. Still, the main reason you must own this game is it's one of the best games to fully utilize the capabilities of the Wiimote without having to buy Wii Motion Plus. And on that note, I think we will wrap this up. For another take on the Trauma Team game, check out our written review on GameZone.com. Well, that's going to do it for me, gamers. If you will excuse me, I'm itching to see how this game ends. This has been Luke. My catchphrase as always is God bless and happy gaming. Thanks so much for watching, and until we meet again, gamers.